I leapt off his back and landed on the giant's head. When the giant looked up, I slid off his face, shield bashing his nose on the way down. The giant staggered backwards, blue blood trickling from his nostrils. I hit the pavement, running. The podium breathed a cloud of white mist and the temperature dropped. The spot where I'd landed was now coated with ice, and I was covered with frost like a sugar donut. "Hey, ugly!" Annabeth yelled. I hoped she was talking to the giant, not me. Blue Boy bellowed and turned towards her, exposing the unprotected back of his legs. I charged and stabbed him behind the knee. Ah! The Hyborian buckled. I waited for him to turn, but he froze. I mean, he literally turned into solid ice. From the point where I'd stabbed him, cracks appeared in his body. They got larger and wider until the giant crumbled in a mountain of blue shards. "Thanks," Annabeth winced, trying to catch her breath. "The pig?" "Pork chops," I said. "Good." She flexed her shoulder. Obviously the wound was still bothering her, but she saw my expression and rolled her eyes. "I'm fine, Percy. Come on. We got plenty of enemies left." She was right. The next hour was a blur. I fought like I'd never fought before, wading into legions of Dracane and taking out dozens of Telekines with every strike, destroying Impusi and knocking out enemy demigods. No matter how many I defeated, more took their place. Annabeth and I raced from block to block, trying to shore up our defenses. Too many of our friends lay wounded in the streets. Too many were missing. As night wore on, the moon got higher. We were backed up foot by foot until we were only a block from the Empire State Building in any direction. At one point, Grover was next to me, bonking snake women on the head with his cudgel. Then he disappeared in the crowd, and it was Thalia at my side, driving the monsters back with the power of her magic shield. Miss O'Leary bounded out of nowhere, picked up a Lastogonian giant in her mouth, and flung him into the air like a frisbee. Annabeth used her invisibility cap to sneak behind the enemy lines. Whenever a monster disintegrated for no apparent reason, with a surprised look on his face, I knew Annabeth had been there. But it wasn't enough. "Hold your lines!" Katie Gardner shouted somewhere. The problem was there was too few of us to hold anything. The entrance to Olympus was 20 feet behind me. A ring of brave demigods, hunters, and nature spirits guarded the doors. I slashed and hacked, destroying everything in my path. But even I was getting tired, and I couldn't be everywhere at once. Behind the enemy troops, a few blocks to the east, a bright light began to shine. I thought it was the sunrise. Then I realized Kronos was riding towards us on a golden chariot. A dozen Lastogonian giants bore torches before him. 2 Hyborians carried his black and purple banner. The Titan Lord looked fresh and rested, his powers at full strength. He was taking his time advancing, letting me wear myself down. Annabeth appeared next to me. "We have to fall back to the doorway. Hold it at all costs." She was right. I was about to order a retreat when I heard the hunting horn. It cut through the noise of the battle like a fire alarm. A chorus of horns answered from all around us, echoing off the buildings. I glanced at Thalia, but she just frowned. "Not the hunters," she assured me. "We're all here." "Then who?" The horns got louder. I couldn't tell where they were coming from because of the echo, but it sounded like an entire army was approaching. I was afraid it might be more enemies, but Kronos' forces looked just as confused as we were. Giants lowered their clubs. Dracane hissed. Even Kronos' honor guard looked uneasy. Then, to our left, 100 monsters cried out at once. Kronos' entire northern flank surged forward. I thought we were doomed, but they didn't attack. They ran straight past us and crashed into their southern allies. A new blast of horns shattered the night. The air shimmered. In a blur of movement, an entire cavalry appeared as if dropping out at light speed. "Yeah, baby!" a voice wailed. "Party!" A shower of arrows arced over our heads and slammed into the enemy, vaporizing hundreds of demons. But these weren't regular arrows. They made whizzy sounds as they flew, like whee! Some had pinwheels attached to them, others had boxing gloves rather than points. "Centaurs!" Annabeth cried. The party pony army exploded into our midst in a riot of colors. Tie-dyed t-shirts, rainbow afro wigs, oversized sunglasses, and war-painted faces. Some had slogans scrawled across their flanks like "Horses Own" or "Kronos Sucks." Hundreds of them filled the entire block. My brain couldn't process everything I saw, but I knew if I were the enemy, I'd be running. "Percy!" Chiron shouted out across the sea of wild centaurs. He was dressed in armor from the waist up, his bow in his hand, and he was grinning in satisfaction. "Sorry we were late." "Dude!" another centaur yelled. We'll talk later. Waste monsters now.